We are going to go ahead and get started here with this week's edition of LEAD, and an active agenda here today. And just very quickly want to walk back through what's happened this week. Monday, we heard in the governor's conference that there was a pause coming, and there had been contact with the Minnesota State High School League, and we were surprised to hear that. So we were in full anticipation to find out more what that would mean. Yet we continue to have contact with state agencies, make sure that we continue to advocate for our programs and have the best information available. Tuesday, we were anticipating maybe hearing something during the governor's presentation at 2. We then found out that that would happen on Wednesday, or on Tuesday evening. We prepared a message out to you with the details that we currently had. Just know that that changed multiple times during the day, hearing that it would come out on Wednesday. And then I found out Wednesday the governor would be speaking on during that evening. Worked into the evening last night to provide the best information that we possibly could. Hearing from outlets that the anticipated pause was coming as soon as Friday. Just know that we sought to continue to be able to offer our programming at least through Saturday, and we're unable to do so. And just know this. What we've accomplished so far this fall has been valued. We know it's not easy to take this pause, but it's been very clear and been very, was very clear to me yesterday that when we come out of this pause, or to have the ability to come out of this pause, that we need to do two things. We need to provide relief to our healthcare system, and we need to lower our cases. And that is our job here for the next 4 weeks, I believe, to make sure that we're able to offer programming that our students need right now. If we could go to the agenda, please, Laura. Here's what we have planned for you today, and know that there's more information coming yet this week. Eric's going to dissect and interpret the executive order. We're going to tell you what that means for football and volleyball currently in completing our season here by Friday at 11:59. What we hear about the use of facilities for you and for non-school activities. Just bringing clarification around outdoor sports and recreation. Again, more clarity than anything else. And then what does that mean for winter sports and the potential of virtual coaching? And then additional guidance and information along with documents that will be coming out to you later yet this week. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about what we learned in Executive Order 2099.
Thanks so much, Bob, and good morning, everyone. We continue to appreciate our connection to the state agencies. Yet this was an interesting situation where we didn't have information prior to the question and answer session on Monday that statements were going to be imminent in this week, which had all of us working really hard to try and get the best information and put it together in a timely way. What we do know is, as Bob said, is that the numbers right now of positive cases and the impacts of that are alarming. And so things have to be done. And again, remember that spirit and intent are really critical whenever you see these kinds of things. And the spirit and the intent of this is not to say that there's anything wrong with youth sports and that there's anything bad about them. Well, the whole spirit and intent is to reduce gathering to the greatest extent possible, to try to shut down the number of positive cases and reduce that transmission. I want to recognize a couple of things. First of all, people on calls for quite some time now are tired, they're frustrated, and they're anxious. And I'm sure that is only 3 of the things that you're feeling right now in the roles in which you are governing and leading and providing support for others. And it has been a long haul, and it continues to be a long haul. We do see some positive signs. We hear more and more of vaccines on a regular basis. And yet we know that statistically that things have to change in terms of the curve right now and be able to open things back up in a safe way. I also want to recognize how hard this is for our students. They're amazingly resilient, and you get to see it first and foremost in the work that you do, and that they will figure it out and they will come through, but it takes great leadership. And we know that it's also hard for you in all of the positions that you're in, whether you're an AD, whether you're a coach, whether you're a director, whatever that looks like, lots of pressure on you. And that pressure is everywhere, whether it's principals or superintendents or ADs or coaches. We're all right on the front lines with our communities and recognize how difficult that is. As we look at Emergency Executive Order 2099, it's all about what does it look like for the next 4 weeks. And that order came out and it was very clear and very succinct that says that all in-person activities, practices, group workouts, games, tournaments, etc., any kind of gathering and involvement has to be stopped as of Friday night as we get started. And right now the plan is for that to take place for 4 weeks. And that 4 week, when I asked, why the 4 weeks? Why is that the number that we're settling on? We can all look at a calendar and say that actually gets us coming back the Saturday before Christmas. And it's all around the science again of that's 2 transmission cycles that they're looking at. And they believe that's what's needed to change the trajectory of where the caseloads are right now for a number of positive cases. And so in asking further and talking more about it, is that hard and fast? And do we start automatically on December 19th? The answer is the target date is December 19th. Yet evaluation is going to continue and they're going to be watching really carefully to see where we are in terms of number of cases, what it means for our healthcare systems, how well we're able to function, and are we starting to turn that curve and create a situation where there's a little more relief there for a number of folks. So those are the time frames. And as we walk through what that means for us, we'll get more detail about how that works and try and explain that the best that we can. And just know that we're going to continue to work through the next couple of days to provide additional guidance. We'll talk more about that as we get toward the end. So Bob, with that, the only other thing that I want to mention is that our league was very adamant and advocated very clearly to provide some additional time for us to complete the seasons that were in place. And that's where we're going to go next to talk about. And the answer was clear that the shutdown is now and it's for everyone. And there wouldn't be any relief that would be given or additional flexibility, even for our varsity levels for postseason or to wrap up the last regular season week of volleyball and into postseason there. So despite our efforts on that, we are where we are. So Bob, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, and Eric, just stay present here for a moment. I think there's a good comment in chat, and I think we have to remind people around the data that we ask from you. That data is so important as we share that. And it is just, the data shows the job that you do and the programming we're able to provide. And it just reiterates that we offer what I believe the safest and the best programming for youth sports for our high school students. Some of the data that you heard this week shared directly impact what we've done or even the sports that we currently offer. Remember, we're currently offering football and volleyball as we speak. And some of that data may be viewed towards us. That is not high school or Minnesota State High School League activities necessarily with the data that was used. And it isn't supported by what we've heard from you. Yet the MDH and the MDE greatly appreciate that we are able to provide that information to show how it reflects our programming. Any comments on that, Eric, before I move into football?
It's a great question, and data is critical. The data that's front and foremost for the Department of Health and the governor and Department of Ed is where the caseloads are in the healthcare systems and the safety of folks. Our activities continue to show that within the high school setting, they are the safest and best monitored activities that are out there. We continue to lack evidence that the competition itself is providing high risk of transmission. And yet all of the auxiliary aspects around having activities create additional gathering and additional challenges. And so you're doing a great job, have done a great job throughout the season. If you've watched the TV, press coverage, or you've seen the governor's information, the data there, the #1 sport in terms of transmission or outbreaks has been hockey, which we don't even have a practice started yet. And so that's not to blame anyone, but just to make mention of we're doing a great job and we're going to continue to do a great job, and we're going to advocate to be able to be first in line to get started again when that's going to be allowed.
Good, thank you very much, Eric. And jumping into football, we heard loud and clear from liaisons heading into Tuesday night, and then at return participation again that there are many contests played on Tuesday night, and the message often was from coaches, play like it's your last night. And as we started to hear that maybe Tuesday wasn't the last night, but multiple outlets started to report that something was coming on Friday, and I think you heard Eric say our attempt to at least have Saturday fell short. I worked with Craig Perry actually to assist me in sports medicine to take a look at what would be the opportunity to provide a Tuesday, Friday series of events. Tuesday, Saturday is less than ideal in a normal year around football, but would there be a potential both to protect bylaw and also, most importantly, health and safety of our student athletes? Would the Tuesday, Friday be an option? It was a review. And there are those that are ecstatic to have that opportunity to conclude their seasons tomorrow night. There are others that are frustrated that are still playing, and we recognize that and acknowledge that. And there are some that chose not to play, and we respect that greatly. But that ability to play Tuesday, Friday is an option. If you've been eliminated from bracket play in a tournament and have met your 6-game regular season limit, you no longer have the option of being able to play games itself. So those are questions that we've had along the way. Make sure you understand bylaw 502 and the limits, both the daily limits, the 6.5 quarters in 3 consecutive days, along with season limits for this year. The regular season limits are 6. So I think that's it for me for football. And Susie and Laura, if you monitor chat, if there's anything I miss. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Jody at this time to discuss volleyball. Jody?
Thanks, Bob. Good morning, everyone. As you know, volleyball was scheduled to conclude the regular season on Saturday, November 28th. So we have one more full week of the regular season in volleyball that was scheduled, with section play ending on December 12th. With the governor's executive order, the regular season will end or conclude this Friday, November 20th. Volleyball contests during this last 2 days of the regular season are considered just that, regular season. These contests are hosted by member schools and must abide by the regular season guidance that you have all been following this entire season. This means or includes that teams may play only one opponent per day, and that this could be a single match or a double header. Meaning if you play a double header against the same opponent, it would though count as 2 of your 14 allowable contests. Contests may only be duels. No invitational tournaments are allowed. And this means, again, that no more than 2 teams may compete at a single location on a single day. And you may not exceed the 14 regular season contests. Now, there was an exception that will be allowed over the course of the next 2 days, and that was to schedule 1 additional contest. You're currently allowed 3. You may add 1 additional contest this week if your school chooses to do that. As Bob mentioned, we have heard loud and clear from liaisons that bringing closure to this season is important for our student athletes. And so again, that addition to the current policy that allows for only 3 contests a week is being extended to 4. And that is up to the individual school to make that decision and to decide what's best for them. Additional guidelines will be provided to member schools regarding postseason play in volleyball. As you know, we're currently under a pause for the next month. But additional guidelines will be coming out as to the decision around concluding the volleyball season for this 2020 season. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Bob.
Good, thank you very much, Jody. I think one thing we know that football and volleyball are in different places in their season. And Jody, I appreciate your work and then the work of our region secretaries to assist us on what the end of this week will look like for volleyball. I'm going to turn it back to Eric to really talk about the language around facilities and interpret and summarize what we know, again, from the recent executive order. So, Eric?
Thanks again, Bob. And as you know, when there are new executive orders, there are tales everywhere, and people are reading the executive order, and sometimes they're not finding some of the things that might be important to them. So the planning guidance for Minnesota Public Schools is an extensive document that's probably over 100 pages long. And in there were adjustments that were made just yesterday that go right along with the hard line on what practice and competition and all of those things in organized sports can even look like. And the fact that they're paused across the board is significant. It goes further within the planning guidance to talk about what facilities can or cannot be used for. And so as you look at this, the language is pretty clear. All organized adult and youth sports and activities, which include games, performances, competitions, practices, and other in-person gatherings of teams or groups participating in extracurricular activities, must be stopped effectively of November 20th, the end of the day, November 20th. And so that's a stronger statement that then extends to any kind of in-person extracurriculars across the board. And so that includes any of our school facilities as well as non-school activity taking part within the school activities. So that rental piece of who gets to come in and use our space. Again, if it wasn't clear from the executive order that all youth sports are going to be shut down, now this also kind of doubles down on that in terms of what facilities can be used for. So schools should not be renting out their gyms, their weight rooms, or other facilities. If you dig further, and we're going to continue to try to provide a more stronger summary or a more complete summary of all of the documentation that's out there. And as you look at the different things that people are going to be wondering about, they're going to wonder about fine arts and some of those things and what else can happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about open gyms and some of those kinds of things. But really the contact is going to be down to virtual only. And bringing together folks for any particular purpose is just not going to be allowed at this time. And so we'll try and do our best to walk that through a little bit further. But Laura, if you want to step to the next slide would be great. And so that leads into additional information around outdoor sports and recreation. Again, as we walk back through the timeline of this week, initial reports from the media indicated that indoor sports were going to be stopped, but there was going to be, continue to have permission for outdoor sports to take place. And really what that guidance is all around is it allows for outdoor recreational activity, and that is limited to one household only. So the only group gathering for any kind of outdoor recreational activity should be individual in nature or individuals from your particular household, and that would apply to your schools and your students as well. And so again, they try to have encompassing language that talks about performances, competitions, team events, tournaments, races, rallies, and you can read the rest that's included there. So when it comes to winter for us and what we think about in terms of outdoor sports and recreation, minds are going to go to Nordic skiing, alpine skiing, and perhaps taking hockey outdoors or things like that. Again, can an individual go and go Nordic skiing? They absolutely can. Can they do it with their family members? They can. Can they do it with their teammates? Not unless they are teammates that are in the same household. Can they have alpine ski practice? They cannot, because there's no organized in-person practice that's allowed either indoor or outdoor for our sports. And so this should be very clear that those limitations exist. And so if you think about starting with who's in my household and what can we do, that's about the level to which you can go with any kind of flexibility. So like I said earlier, we're going to try to bring everything we can together into common language and try to point you to the documents that spell it out in each of those areas, because questions around facilities, et cetera, are really critical. And Bob, I know this kind of leads into the next slide, but you were going to also talk a little more about outdoor sports and kind of the confusion around football for a little bit of time as well.
Sorry, I have to hit unmute there, Eric. And I'm going to ask you another question about facilities here, but there was some confusion around football and whether there was going to be grace for football being an outdoor activity or outdoor sport, as again, some of the outlets were allowing to be heard yesterday. And again, football very quickly learned that it fit into a performance competition or team event / activity. So that is something that I think we learned very quickly here as the governor was releasing information last evening. Eric, we talk about member schools and following all of our rules and bylaws and policies, and also the spirit of what we're hearing from the governor's order. We're also hearing, I believe, that when it comes to facilities, that it's publicly used facilities along with private facilities such as gyms, workout centers, things like that. Anything further around public or private facilities, and is there any delineation?
It's a great question, Bob, and it's very very detailed in the executive order to talk about all facilities are going to be shut down for the use of any kind of organized youth sports, adult sports, and even even other entities or organizations that may feel like they fall outside the lines of that. And so those are all shut down during this time frame for use. And I think that they've been notified as well from the state level to have that information. And so it is a very much an across the board and consistent message that facilities are not available. Kind of if you think back to summer, things like parks being open and golf courses were open at the time. And so that would be your ski runs or things like that. Those are still going to be available from a recreational standpoint, but not for a competitive or a practice type situation. So I'll turn it back to you to take it on.
Great, thank you very much, Eric. And we're going to head into winter sports. There's much anticipated questions, and we're going to try and give you as many answers as we possibly can here today. And while Laura's pulling up that slide around winter sports, which also transfers into virtual coaching aspects as well, I think I received a chat from Tom Bauman at Buffalo as well. And Tom, thank you for your thoughts. And I think Tom hit the nail on the head. We need our coaches to have access to our student athletes as soon as the winter season, and we know football and volleyball still have that access currently right now. So we're going to work on that and make sure that that districts understand and know that our coaches need access and need to be able to support our student athletes in all that they're enduring right now during this pause. So I think that's a great reminder for us. And actually, the virtual coaching is something we will get more information out to you. I'm going to actually really start at the bottom here with dance because they're in season. They have started, and so dance coaches will be able to have virtual connection with their student athletes, provide and support mentorship and individualized workouts. Right, we're not keeping track of what they're doing. We're not logging what they're doing. But we do have access, and they are in season, and their season is now paused as it has begun. We'll jump back to the top, some popular questions that we've received. Again, this is language, right, I believe, from the executive order that all in-person activities, including practices, group workouts, games, and tournaments, must be stopped. So that's going to include open gyms, captain's practices, weight training that is, not curricular in nature, right? So if students are in a hybrid setting and have it as a class, that would be different than before or after school using facilities for strength conditioning or weight training. And again, that spontaneous group recreation, anything we can do to avoid that, where students are going to gather, right? And in the form of what may look like a captain's practice in some cases, but we have to minimize those groups, right, in order to get us out of this pause and back to doing what we do well and what you do so well in practicing and playing what we're able to offer in sports and activities. We're going to look and we're going to utilize our liaisons, our return participation task force, also our staff on ways that coaches can remain connected, as Tom mentioned in his comment, to make sure that our student athletes are safe, our participants are safe, and it's appropriate during this executive order. So we do not have the details with that right now. We know that it was scheduled for boys basketball and boys hockey to begin as soon as Monday, with dance already in session. As I mentioned, we're already in season, and we'll have more information and details out to you when we're comfortable and make sure that that's in a good position for you to be able to share with your coaches. Eric or staff, anything I missed here in the winter season or virtual coaching?
I think there's one aspect in terms of use of facilities that I think is important, and I don't know if I missed it while I was checking a phone on a message, but in-school use of activities that are of facilities for classes that are credit earning within the curriculum is still allowed if schools are in person or hybrid, but they must be a credit earning course. And that's where the only place where gyms or workout rooms or weight rooms might be possible. So I think that's the one piece there that might be a little bit unique, but otherwise did a great job.
Good, thank you very much, Eric. And I'm hearing through chat and on text here I'm getting from our staff that there's a question about waivers for volleyball this Friday with the number of contests that will be played. That would be for non-registered officials. Those still need to work through Jason Nickleby in our office. It's just not a carte blanche or a blanket statement saying go ahead. Please work through Jason if you would are seeking that waiver and the circumstances around it. I think we're on to our next slide here. Laura and I are about to wrap up here today, but just know this, that we have additional guidance coming to you on Friday as mentioned. Anything further around the volleyball season as we gather questions or find out new information, we can get that out to you by this Friday, along with some details and guidance around the winter season as we just mentioned, one of those being a definition around virtual coaching. What does that look like? Does that look like our last spring, or what have we learned? And making sure that we're seeking some feedback around that, as well as fine arts, right? We need to get you more information around fine arts as well. Anything I mentioned there in additional guidance, Eric or staff? All right, a question. Go ahead.
Question in the chat. Can trainers work with injured athletes doing rehab during this time?
Good question. I would say that anything outside of that school day right now, if it's within that school system, I don't have a clear answer for that. If it's medical related and they're using a doctor or a medical staff, I think that is something that we can look at and get more information out. But we want to be really careful again on what the intent of that is. We have football and volleyball obviously still playing through Friday, so obviously you're able to do so. Within that, I also had a question around chat on can individual families reserve space to use the facility? No groups, just independent families. Eric, I don't know if you have any thoughts or insight into that. I know there's pretty specific language when you have around what families can or cannot do, but my understanding is majority of our facilities are off limits at this around indoor facilities. Eric, any further thoughts on that?
I think you're spot on in terms of the spirit and the intent, and also what I've seen in terms of closure of facilities that they are not available for rental by individuals or groups for those particular purposes. And so we'll try and, as Bob said, on a number of things, there's documents that are out that are being updated, and we'll try and get the best information and state that as clearly as we can for you, and quote the actual information as we have in this slideshow as well, to make sure that you have accurate information and where it's come from.
Very good, Eric. And again, next week we're on a holiday week. It's going to be a very different and a holiday week that will feel incredibly different, primarily because my family will be stuck with me as I be down at US Bank Stadium setting up for what we would typically be getting ready for our prep bowl. But we are going to offer lead next week with things changing as fast as they are. We have to get information out and stay connected to you as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So we will be having lead next Tuesday at 10:45, again, with more information coming out to you. This won't be the last you hear from our office. Obviously, like we stated yet this weekend. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your continued work and what you've been able to offer our student athletes, most importantly. So we'll sign off at this time. We have work yet to do and information to get out to you. So enjoy the rest of the day to your best ability and give those football and volleyball athletes the best you can for the next 2 days. All right, Susie or Laura, are you gathering?